Hi, I'm Ashton, and I'm sorry if I look like a little bit of a mess. I've spent the past 2 days baking, and this makeup has been on my face for a little bit too long for me to feel comfy filming in it. But I'm doing it anyway because, as you know from the title, it has been 3 years since I got top surgery, which is pretty exciting. So the day that I'm filming this is December 17th, which means that I'm actually 3 years plus 1 day post-top surgery and 2 years minus 1 day post my top surgery revision. I believe that math is correct. Unlike some of my past videos where I show and talk about my chest instead of being in my bathroom and like stripping while I'm talking, I'm just gonna show you B-roll. I think it'll make the audio and the clarity of the video as a whole just a bit better. So that's the plan there. So this is the first time since last December that I've fully made a video about my chest. And you know, one of the fun, exciting things about life and about having a body is your body continues to change as you grow and as you age and whatever else happens in your life. And as someone whose chest has been through multiple traumas, it has changed a lot, and it continues to change even as it is healing 3 years down the road. So plenty has changed between this time last year and now, and I want to talk about that. I want to talk about the recovery as a whole. I've got a list of things to talk about through look, sensation, and then some miscellaneous stuff, and then my plans for my chest, because it's not done, baby. I know some of you have been here since pre-me getting top surgery, and some of you have only joined in the last couple weeks, so I'm going to give a little bit of context, but to those of you that already know, I'm sorry. You can skip forward a couple seconds. I'll put timestamps in the description. But a brief overview for those of you that would like to listen. I got double incision top surgery on December 16th, 2017. I was 16, almost 17 at the time, and now I am 19 and I'll be 20 in a month and a half-ish. Through no fault of my own and through no fault of my doctors, I have to disclaim that every single time, I did have a top surgery complication. There's no real, definitive answer as to why it happened or how it happened, but it did, and I'm okay with that, and I love my chest regardless. So on December 18th, 2018, I got a top surgery revision. I have multiple videos covering the revision and the original surgery and all sorts of different types of things, so if you want to know more about any of that, you can go look at that playlist, which this video will also be on. So with the complication I had, some of my tissue died and or my nipple was absorbed by my body. I had a really heavy scab buildup. I had to be aspirated a couple months after my surgery. One of my scars had to be reopened up a couple months after surgery. It was complicated and there was a lot of healing and a lot of pain involved, but here I am today doing just fine. And I feel like it's a really common misconception, a lot of people online especially think that I'm angry or frustrated about the fact that I had a complication, and I'm honestly not. I talk a lot about how comfortable I am with my chest now, and even then, even when I was still going through a lot of healing and a lot of pain, I am infinitely more comfortable with my chest than I ever was before surgery. Again, I've talked about this before, but it's really frustrating when people kind of take away my agency in a way where, because when people do say stuff like, oh, you must be so angry or never go back to that surgeon, just refuse to take my word into account. They're like, oh, yeah, you must be angry. I'm not gonna listen to you. This is your fault. Which it's not. Complications happen sometimes. Everybody's body reacts differently to different things, and this just happens to be how mine reacted to surgery. Whether or not it's perfect wasn't really my fault, and it wasn't my surgeon's fault, because someone's gonna end up having a complication, even if the risk is incredibly low, so you're welcome for taking one for the team. I am really, really lucky to have gotten surgery at the time in my life when I did, and I will literally forever be grateful for it, and I love the way that my chest has ended up, and even though I did obviously go through some tough shit, I'm still really, really lucky, and I do want to emphasize that, not everyone's going to get top surgery, not everyone wants top surgery, not everyone gets it so early in their life. So regardless of my complication, regardless of insurance complications that I went through as well, I'm really lucky and I'm really, really happy with where my body is now, and I really do not need a random internet person's assumptions on what went wrong. Regardless of shitty internet misconceptions and awful comments about my body, I do, to an extent, enjoy talking about and showing my chest online. And even when people post it alongside with slurs on Reddit forums, I get positive feedback from a lot of trans people. A lot of people that have also experienced complications, or people who are worried about about top surgery and want to see like an experience that isn't perfect just to get themselves prepared, whether it's emotionally or physically, whatever. You know, if I can make one person more comfortable with either their body or the body that they may have in the future, then I think that's a really cool thing, and I am more than happy to talk about it. During the revision, both of my scars were recut along top of, some more tissue was removed, and my nipple was somewhat reconstructed. Unlike some other trans people online, I personally don't want to disclose the price because I went through awful insurance shit, or my surgeon's name because of my complication and because there is definitely a negative response to an extent when I talk about my body. I am more than happy to talk about that stuff with like my IRL friends, and they know that. So if that's you watching this, like, you can talk to me about it. If we don't know each other, then like, please don't ask me about insurance policy. It's not personal. I just don't want to talk about insurance or my specific doctor with people that I don't know and or trust. All right, now that all of that has been said, let's take a gander at how my chest looks 3 years after top surgery. I had a relatively large chest before surgery. I was a D cup, and even though I wore sports bras and oftentimes binders, I also had / still struggle a little bit with something known as costochondritis, which has to do with the inflammation of your connective tissues in your rib area. That was partially due to binding and probably also just partially due to my body, because my body's just a mess sometimes, and apparently costo is part of that. I am 5'4", 5'5" with boots on, and I had a D cup chest, and flattening it with a binder helped for sure, absolutely, but I was never really able to be flat before surgery. And now being able to effortlessly like just have a flat chest, it has changed my life. Like, I'm so happy with how flat my chest is. I'm so happy with the shape of it. I'm so happy with how it looks under a shirt. I love it. I feel so much more confident in the shape of my chest in general. I really love the way my scars frame my chest. I've talked about before how much I love my top surgery scars. I'm someone who has kind of been forced to reckon with my scars over my lifetime. I am someone who has a lot of scars in general, so I've had to get pretty comfortable with them over my life, and having top surgery scars is something that I feel is empowering for me personally. It's not like that for every person that gets top surgery, but that's how it is for me. Now, my chest is not completely perfectly flat. I for sure have more fat tissue on one side than the other. Bodies are lopsided, that's how it goes. The dead tissue on my left side had to be removed, and, you know, stuff died and then was absorbed by my body, and, you know, all sorts of fun complication-related stuff that made that side have overall less tissue than the other. So no, my chest is not completely even or parallel or anything, but I love it, and it is mine, and it's unique, and that's okay. As for my scars, they are practically the same color as my skin now. I cared for them using scar strips, like silicone scar tape. So because of the way that my revision surgery went, my scars are actually 2 years old, even though I've had a flat chest for 3. Because the scars that existed from my first surgery were kind of recut open and then reclosed. So these have been closed for 2 years. Regardless, my scars are at this point pretty much just the same color as my skin on my chest, which is really nice. They are obviously still a different texture, but they are relatively thin. There are, of course, areas that are slightly different colors, areas that are slightly thicker, but all bodies are different, all bodies change and grow differently, and that's just how mine is, and I'm okay with that. I also do have these like very small dimple-like scars along the main scar, if that makes sense, from where staples were. And because my chest was cut open and stapled shut twice, I actually feel like I probably have more staple scars than many people do. They're pretty sporadic and varied, again, because it happened twice, but I really like the staple scars. They're fun. Some of the staple scars you can feel more than you can see, and I don't know how well this will catch on video, but I am showing you what I can. The ends of my scars are also a little bit forked because, again, I was cut open twice. They almost look like branches or like a split tongue of an amphibian, which is very fun. So that's my scars. I really love how they've healed. They really make me feel connected to my body. And I also wanted to touch on my drain scars because, again, these holes were opened twice. My drain scars are probably more prominent than most people's. I had Penrose drains. I believe the type of drain you see most commonly with top surgery is like a Jackson Pratt drain, which is like when there's a bulb that collects fluid. Penrose drains are just, they look like a little penny pasta noodle sticking out your side. And instead of like tubes that are super long or have bulbs at the end, Penrose you just put like a pad, like a sanitary pad over your Penrose drain noodle, and it collects stuff as it comes out. I found them pretty convenient. I preferred them, I think, to a Jackson Pratt, but I also never had a Jackson Pratt drain, so I can't really compare, but I liked having Penrose drains. I think even more so than my double incision scars, these drain scars are probably more prominent than most people's, one side more than the other, because one was, you know, open more than the other, and complication means I'm a bit lopsided, but I like it. Even though my drain scars are more prominent than most people's that I've seen, I truly don't mind them. I don't think about them. The last time I really thought about them was probably last year when I did this video and mentioned them, and I don't think about them. They're just there. I have one nipple. This is a very fun fact about me. If you've ever played like a get to know you game with me, I love to mention I have one nipple. It's a great 2 truths and a lie tidbit. Really fun fact to introduce yourself with, would recommend. I joke about it all the time, and truly, even though it is an impact of my complication, I think it's hilarious. I think it's so fun to joke about, and my friends joke about it all the time too. It's great. Having one nipple is such a wonderful experience, as odd as that sounds. It's not ideal. I would rather have 2 normal nipples, perhaps, but it's fun. I had a complex nipple time, and now instead of like having a nipple, I just kind of have a little bit of scar tissue in the shape of a nipple, so that's what you're seeing now. As for my other nipple, my actual nipple that is not a scar, this is my nipple. My nipples were done with a keyhole method, which has a ironically lower rate of complication than nipple grafts. For those of you that don't know, there are a couple different methods of reattaching nipples. Some people choose to not have any nipples, which is very epic. I half did that, but not by choice. With a nipple graft, they cut around your nipple, take it off, and then reattach it after all of the reconstruction has been done. But for buttonhole nipples, which is what I have, they do cut down the nipple, reshape it however you have requested, but it is kept attached to your nerve, which helps it reattach to your chest. It's similar to a button, right? You've got a buttonhole like in the skin, and then the nipple pokes up through that. And imagine the thread is like your nerve that your nipple is still attached to. The one nipple I do have has healed relatively well. I don't mind it at all. It's a normal nipple that exists on my body. But yeah, the color, the pigmentation is pretty similar to my chest pre-top surgery. I do have a little bit of loss of coloration around the top of the nipple here, which you can see. So yeah, the skin of my nipple gets a little dry, but like, so does a lot of my other skin, and it's not really something that is super notable or interesting. It's just something that I take care of, and if I moisturize it, then it's not an issue, and it doesn't hurt, it doesn't get irritated. However, this is something that can change for a long time after your surgery, and it's only been 2 years since the last time my chest was sliced open, so this could continue to change. I can't really say. I have had a couple times where I have felt it, and I don't know if that's more like a phantom pain sensation type thing, or if the nerves are there and they're just taking their sweet time. I couldn't tell you. I did recently-ish have feeling in my nipple, like very briefly, and it was just an odd touch sensation, but I felt it when I touched it. And that doesn't always happen. It's not something that's consistent, but it's slowly happening more frequently, just like super slowly. So that is entirely something that could change in the future. But as of right now, my nipple doesn't really have any sensation. Weirdly, the most sensitive part of my chest is the scars and the skin around them, which is not something that I expected. If you are also someone with kind of a complicated relationship with sensation in your chest, something that's kind of helped me figure out where I do and where I don't feel things, and the ways that my nipple sensation exists and or doesn't exist, and also the way that my scars have felt and changed over time. Something that helps is the Q-tip test. Using a Q-tip to touch your chest instead of your own finger kind of lets you feel when it's on your chest and not when your chest is on your finger. It's kind of difficult for your brain sometimes to figure out all the different ways your nerves work, and using a Q-tip can help you kind of parse out what parts of your chest you feel and what parts you don't. The last thing I want to talk about sensation-wise is that sometimes I do get pain and twitches. It's occasional, every week maybe. It's just kind of inconvenient. I'll get a random like shooting pain most of the time along my scars or along like this section of my chest. That could be due to, you know, a bunch of different things. I'm not a doctor. When your nerves are reconnecting, sometimes you get shooting pain, so that could be my nerves still attempting to heal or healing. It could just be that my brain doesn't know how to deal with areas of my body that are numb. It could just be, I don't know, a little mouse inside of my body stabbing me with a needle. And then my chest will also sometimes twitch, like the muscles will move without me moving them, which is something that a lot of my body does. more so like my legs and I guess my chest also. Last, I have a couple miscellaneous things to talk about before I close this up with my emotions and my plans for my chest in the future, which I have talked about before, but maybe have changed, I don't know. Hi, I'm filming some B-roll right now, and I realized that in the past I've mentioned and discussed like my range of motion post-op surgery, and I didn't talk about that in this video just because it's done. Like, my range of motion is fully back. I have really no more inhibitions on the ways that I can move. It's been 3 years, you know, sometimes there's a slight like pulling or odd sensation in my scar area, but not like pulling in a bad way, just pulling like my skin is tight, you know, like it is in any other way when you stretch. Just wanted to throw that in there, that I have no more motion restrictions. It's not really something that has had a long-term impact. So unrelated to top surgery, I guess, but in relation to T, which I've been on for coming up on 4 years in a couple months, maybe 5, I don't know. I think 4 years. Yeah, 4 years. I've been on T for around 4 years at this point. Testosterone is another fun thing about my personal transition that has just been changing my body for a long time and probably will continue to change my body. But I have chest hair now, which I don't believe that I had much of. I have hair in like a pretty standard cis man pattern, but like a cis man who's like an otter at most, still pretty twink-like, you know? And then the more fun, interesting thing is that I also have darker and thicker hair along my scars. It's very sparse, but it's for sure there, and I don't know why or how that happens, but it exists, and I thought it was something to point out, so there you go. Another thing I wanted to mention is stretch marks. I've talked about this before in a couple different videos, but I am someone whose skin moves and changes a lot. My weight fluctuates a lot. I had stretch marks on my chest pre-top surgery, and then, you know, when they manipulate your skin and move it around, and then you're swelling, and then you're stopping swelling, and your chest is healing, sometimes your skin stretches. I had kind of pinky red stretch marks on my chest, visible for a while after my first surgery and then also after my revision. The stretch marks as your skin changes and heals from top surgery are very normal and very standard. Similarly to my scars, mine have changed and lightened over time and kind of blended into my skin, but they are there and they do exist, and that's something that I wanted to mention because it's not something that is really talked about a lot when it comes to top surgery healing, because most trans representation is people that are super skinny. I do think it's probably more common in people that are not super skinny, so wanted to mention it. Last thing that I'm just gonna brush over pretty quickly is swimming. I've gone swimming quite a few times since getting top surgery. Swimming without a shirt is so liberating, and the amount of gender euphoria that it gives me, I feel like I've covered it pretty well, but I'm so happy with my chest. I love pretty much everything about it, and the little things that aren't perfect per se are things that I've grown to love anyway. Being lopsided is fine. Everybody's body is different, including mine. And I think my chest is wonderful, and I'm really happy that it is the way that it is. Last thing to mention before I close out this video is my nipple plans. As you know from earlier, I have one nipple. A lot of people ask me, I ask myself frequently, do I want my nipple tattooed? I think the answer is yes. I was planning on doing it this year, actually, this winter during break from school. However, as we all know, there is a pandemic. I do think that when I eventually get my nipple tattooed, I'll probably chronicle it through a video or two because it's something that's interesting and not something that's talked about a lot. So when I eventually get my nipple tattooed on, it will be over scar tissue. I have had scar tissue tattooed over before on my shoulder. I think it'll probably feel pretty odd because a lot of my chest is numb, but I also feel random bits of it, you know? So I don't know how it will feel. I'm not too nervous about it though. I've been tattooed before. It's not something that is particularly painful for me. At least in the areas that I've had tattooed, which, to be fair, are all pretty easy areas. But when I get that nipple tattooed, I also will probably fill out the little bit that I showed you earlier of my right nipple that doesn't have pigment. It's this tiny bit, but it'll help, I think, with the color matching and just with making my chest look a bit more quote-unquote normal. I am debating over whether or not to get my nipple tattooed in a heart shape. That is all I'll say on that. If you have any questions, feel free to let me know. Perhaps I'll do like a 3 years post-op Q&A. I haven't done a Q&A in a while, and if there's enough questions, we could do that. But aside from that, I will see you later, I suppose. Goodbye, comrades. I hope that you are happy in your body as it grows and changes, because it will always continue to grow and change, and I think that is a beautiful thing. And I'll talk to you later, maybe.